Marie, I said I would never use my powers against any of you. You have to stop.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to a Decoding TV bonus episode about Gen V Season 2, now streaming on Prime Video. I'm David Chen. The neighbors of mine decided to start pressure washing my house pressure washing their house right before this recording began. So I have retreated to my closet next to my bedroom. If you're watching this on YouTube, you will see that. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, you might hear some pressure washing sounds in the background. But let's put that aside, because what we're here to discuss is something far more high-minded than the mundane struggles of what it's like to live in a house in Seattle. I'm David Chen here with Patrick Klepek today, as usual. Patrick, thanks for chatting with me, despite the fact that you're not feeling particularly well today.
I want to live in the world where your neighbors hired a power wash company to power wash your house.
Yeah, that would be amazing. That would be amazing. It was actually a very passive-aggressive move on their part.
I don't know if that's passive-aggressive. I think power washer, if it hits your finger in the right way, can clip off your finger. That's just aggressive move. Mm-hmm. That's just an aggressive move. But yes, I'm struggling with my first cold of the fall-winter season from my children, but happy to be joining you and our special guest.
Joining us also today, she is the creator of the Jessie Gender YouTube channel and frequent co-host here on Decoding TV and on Decoding TV podcast. Jessie Earl, thanks for chatting with us today.
I am excited to be here. And then after this, I'm going to go and play Power Washer Simulator 2 that just came out. So
wow.
I downloaded that as well.
That kind of day, yeah.
I'm going to go play Power Wash Simulator and do a bad job so I can rage against the person who's power washing. They put the power wash machine right next to the window where I usually podcast. It's very frustrating. All right, anyway, Gen V Season 2, it just aired its season finale on Prime Video. We're going to start with overall thoughts and then talk about some of the big spoilers and big reveals of the season. But Jessie Earl, overall thoughts on Gen V Season 2?
I come out of it really, really mixed. I started the season feeling it was on a rocky start, mostly because for me, it just felt very forced to try to get us back to a status quo. For these characters, it was just like, oh yeah, and now they're back at school and everything's kind of just resetting back, and I struggle with that. But then getting into the middle of the season, I really ended up really enjoying it, especially because the villain was so good. Dean Cypher was really fun, really interesting. I enjoyed his performance overall, and he gave a good energy that I didn't think we had as much of as in season 1. But then as we got to the end of the season, it lost to me again, as it kind of just it ended up having more and more frustrating decisions, things that I, without spoiling, saw coming a mile away, and the characters did not, and I just kept screaming at the screen, "Don't do that! That's a dumb idea! Bad, no!" So I ultimately just come away from the whole season being like, it's enjoyable, it's fun, but ultimately kind of a frustrating watch, especially compared to season 1, which I thought was so good. There are things that improve here, but ultimately I think it's kind of a disappointment. And then also, just to say it too, it kind of, in a way that season 1 felt like it was just an addendum to that boys season that was running concurrently with it or coming up right after it. This season feels like it's really, really tied to the upcoming final season of The Boys in a way that I think is a little bit of a detriment to this show. There is some cool stuff that has me excited for that final season of The Boys, but I think this show suffers a little bit in needing to try to set up some stuff coming up for that season, presumably.
Patrick Klepek, overall thoughts on Gen V Season 2?
I find myself in the exact same camp, although I would probably lean heavier on the disappointed element because I had such high expectations coming out of the first season of Gen V, which I thought did a really good job of being an extension of a universe while feeling wholly independent, the kind of show that I could recommend to people. Did The Boys just not click for you? Do you find it sort of irritating and self-indulgent and over the top in a way that ultimately goes over the top and then back down and then climbs back up again? Like, you could recommend Gen V to somebody who didn't like The Boys, and I felt comfortable doing that. Gen V Season 2, I think, struggles in so many different ways, in the ways that we talked about, David, in our initial impressions, in which this show, for real life reasons, sort of catastrophically doesn't really know what to do with itself. And I was trying to give it an extremely long leash to sort of find its footing. I even sort of forgave, fuck it, let's just find our way to the status quo and start over again, because the ways in which they chose to sort of follow on the same ways that Marvel chose to grasp with the real life consequences of the mortality of their actors. Maybe I disagree with the choice to follow in it, but once you do, I'm willing to extend an enormous amount of grace in finding your way there as a set of creatives. And eventually, once they return to status quo and sort of, all right, now we're cooking. What's season 2? We've got one of my favorite working actors playing an exceptional villain. The moment it feels like it's got all the elements to do something interesting in the way that season 1 did, all the tendrils to pull itself into the boys universe start coming in a way that essentially wrap up the season so much fast. Like, this easily could have been a 2-season arc exploring what's happening here. What are the consequences of living under like a far right superhero fascism, but also you just got to live your life. And like, you're in a protected class. You are a superhero, and yet you disagree with everything that's happening around you. That sounds ripe for exploration. And instead, it really feels like everything is rushed and pushed in a direction of supporting the larger boys ecosystem in a way that undermined what made this show interesting in the first place, and tosses out a lot of really good stuff that was happening in the middle. So the beginning, I forgave given the circumstances. The middle brought me right back in. And at the end, for all I even liked about elements of the ending, I just found myself deeply frustrated by what it has to service in part of the greater boys cause. And I found myself pretty disappointed and not all that interested in a Gen V season 3 by the end.
Jesse's cat, by the way, seemingly very much agreeing with you, Patrick.
Yeah. He is climbing all over me, just agreeing. Yeah.
This is an odd position for me to find myself in, but I think I'm probably the most positive out of the 3 of us on Gen V season.
Hell yeah!
Season 2.
A rare card pull.
I would say David being positive on something. Wow.
I think. One reason for watching Gen V season 2 can be summed up in 2 words: Hamish Linklater, right? Like,
yes.
Whatever else is going on this season, he single-handedly, in my opinion, makes the season worth watching. He does some really interesting things with his performance, particularly towards the end. We can talk about momentarily in spoilers, but I just think he's wonderful in the role. He's a formidable villain. And it's just delightful to watch him chew up the scenery. And there are a couple of big reveals this season, some big plot twists that I actually thought were relatively well done. And so between Hamish Linklater and some of those big reveals, I had a good time. Now, aside from those things, I do think the season is quite messy. Patrick, you and I discussed it in our initial impressions. Like, yes, they made the decision to not recast one of their leads who tragically died in between seasons, and they instead had the character die in between seasons and like tried to deal with that. And that was, I'll just say, from a storytelling, I'm sure it was like very challenging to deal with, as like, you know, when you make a TV show with people, they're like your family and friends, and I'm sure it's like very difficult to like overcome that. And I don't want to like undersell that in any way, but from a storytelling perspective, it was very awkward for the first few episodes. But I do think it found its footing by the end, and I really quite enjoyed the last few episodes of the show. I don't disagree with your complaints about tying this in with the boys' broader universe, and how this story in many ways feels like kind of a supplementary, DVD special feature for the boys. And so like I agree with you that is always kind of in the mix a little bit. It always feels like Gen V needs to service the broader plot machinations of the boys, and that is to its detriment. I agree with you. I wish it were not so. I wish these characters could kind of be in their own world and not needing to deal with all the stuff that's going on in the boys. However, we have now seen multiple different universi try to tie in.
No.
University.
I reject. I reject the word that just came out of your mouth.
Multiple interlocking universes, like Peacemaker with Superman, the James Gunn's new DC universe, all the Marvel TV shows, whatever you want to call them. And in terms of like tying shows together, this one does a reasonably competent job, right? Like they have actual actors come in. Yes, it's a little bit silly because none of the characters from The Boys are ever basically in more than one episode.
Mhm.
And so you kind of get a sense of like, oh, they're coming in, they're shooting for like a day or two, and then they're out. But otherwise, it's like, oh, like if you're gonna tie it in, they've done a pretty good job. They've made the characters of the show pretty important to the Boys universe in a way that like feels like they will play a big role, and that makes it feel like you actually have to watch the show in order to fully appreciate the Boys. And that's not something that we've really done before, or done at this level, I would argue, with like, let's say, Marvel TV shows. So I have a lot of positive things to say. Overall, I had a good time. Like the first 3 episodes I thought were pretty awkward and rough. There are some really weird decisions that happen in the midsection, and then I really enjoyed the finale. So like that's kind of my feelings on it. But let's talk about spoilers. Let's talk about like a lot of the stuff that actually happens this season. So we are in spoilers for Gen V season 2, and the big reveal that happens this season is that, you know, Hamish Linklater plays this character named Cypher, who's the new dean of students, and he has this old burned up guy in a hyperbaric chamber in his house, and you know he takes him out every now and then and washes and cleans him and makes sure he's doing okay, but also like seems to treat him horribly. Like sometimes he beats him, sometimes he has intercourse in front of him. Like it's just like it's very upsetting to watch how Hamish Linklater treats this guy. And Marie Moreau and the crew realize that it's actually Thomas Godolkin, one of the creators of this whole situation, Compound V and all this stuff. And so they decide, we got to get this guy out. We got to free this person from Cypher's grasp. And they end up doing that in episode 7, I believe, of the show, only to discover that Cypher is not actually having this guy captive. It's the other way around. There's a whole Being John Malkovich style situation where that guy is Thomas Godolkin. He took a super powerful version of Compound V, same one that what's his name, Soldier Boy took, and that's why he's able to survive for all these years. And he has been controlling Cypher and puppeting him the entire time. I love the reveal. I thought the way that it was done, intercutting between like the two plot lines, was really well done. And it's just like a cool reveal. I just really enjoyed it. Jessie Earl, what did you think of that big reveal?
I mean, I like how it was set up in the sense that we get little hints of it throughout the season. I think there's at one point where they sort of believe that Cypher isn't really a superhero. And they try to like reveal that, and then he reveals he does have a power. That's a really good twist at one point. And there's just a couple hints throughout the season that I really like as seeding it. But I ended up
that Cypher has no Compound V in his blood.
Yes,
and then you're like, but he can still power. So what's going on? Like it gives you enough breadcrumbs to be like, something's going on there, right?
Yeah. So I liked that seeding of it, and maybe it was just because I got ahead of the show. But in that penultimate episode where they're going like, we need to like heal Godolkin and it'll be great, and I'm like, no, I can see where this is bad. It's very, very bad. And so for me watching it, and again, maybe other people had a different experience of it because maybe they were shocked by the reveal, but it ended up for me being one of those moments where I was just like yelling at my screen, no, bad, don't, and it just ended up really frustrating me. And I think it ultimately is like a cool build up and concept, but it just the way it was executed in that penultimate episode where it's just these characters are so headlong into just going for it and not stopping to really think about the consequences of it or what might have like larger effects and what this might mean. That really frustrated me to a point where like I kind of just got out on it. The character of Godolkin, who I think is played by Ethan Slater, I believe is the character. He's also really fun as well. So I liked his performance in the finale, though it was a little sad to lose Hamish as Cypher. But I did find myself just ending up being frustrated by that reveal just because I got ahead of the characters and it just was like, no, bad. So
that's fair. Yeah, I thought he was great. The idea of a Magneto-esque character, but he's also Hitler. So he like he has,
oh man,
he has multiple levels of wanting to feel superior. It's like not only do you need to be a superhero, you need to actually be a high achieving one. None of these silly powers like growing pubic hair or whatever. Like, you need to actually be able to contribute to the new super race. I just think it's a great idea for this show. Patrick Klepek, what do you think of this big? That's kind of the main twist of the season, right? Is that it's actually Thomas Godolkin, and he's the one that's pulling all the strings.
So I'm going to use a highly technical term here. I hope this doesn't go over everyone's heads, but I am a big dum-dum. And so when I watch stuff like this, I never get ahead of the show. Like, I forget what we were... I don't want to spoil...
Yeah.
Like, we're in a spoiler section for Gen V.
Yeah.
I'm not going to spoil Peacemaker, but there's a mid-season twist in there that I don't think the show expects you to really pick up on. Now, we have some really smart contributors to Coding TV, and they figured it out. And then David shared that theory. And I was like, yeah, that adds up. Kind of wish I didn't know that. I'm not saying observational details is a spoiler, but also like on the scale of like smart to dum-dum, I'm down here. I'm not the person putting this together. So I actually think I'm on James Gunn's wavelength here. And so when it happens in the show, I think it would have been like a huge like, oh, for me. And it sounds like, yeah, I guess now I'm waiting for that to happen. And it did. And here it was fun because I got ahead of the show, and that never happens to me. And so instead it was deeply satisfying to watch the characters not put it together because I never put it together. And so for me, I actually think the details become so obvious in this that it wants you in this situation. I do think the show wants you to get ahead of the characters. I think that is intentional. I think the show wants you to sort of put together what's going to happen, which thus makes the last couple of scenes where the characters don't understand that dynamic pretty fun to watch as you sort of realize what the relationship must be, or imagine a relationship between Godolkin and Cypher and all that. So I took a real joy in just it personally, and also I think the show expecting you. Like, there are times in storytelling where it's like, I don't think they're taking into an account. It becomes frustrating for not to be on the same wavelength as the characters. So I understand that frustration. And Jess, you're an incredibly smart person. So my guess is you got onto the trail of this faster than I did. But I think I hit it at like the right stride, so that I was just ahead of the characters, that I got to enjoy that part of it before the rest of the characters caught up.
And did you find it to be a satisfying, interesting reveal? Yes,
was because what you got to do, I found it to be a satisfying reveal because I got to think about the implications of it before they started talking about it, which was like my wife and I would finish an episode and go, so holy shit, like he's just been in that guy's head for how long? And like once you have the moment where there's the fight that, you know, the goofy UFC fight that occurs mid-season, it's like, well, but the way it's described is like you're still there, like you're present, like that is a
pretty horrifying.
I mean, this is a show. Gen V is like not shied away from like using analogies or metaphors or explicitly talking about assault and like the ways that like it and so that's a violation that is occurring. Like the idea that you would have that violation occurring for days, months, years is like a really unsettling thought to like sit with and unpack. And so I actually thought being ahead of it was useful in really for just because the moment that it's actually revealed, everything is so fast at that point. We are just rocketing towards big fights and wrapping things up and the show ending. So to be able to sit with the darkness of what that implies about what this character is capable of and what that says about what their other ulterior motives might be, that was one of the strongest things that ended up working for me in an otherwise kind of messy season.
I also think Hamish Linklater's performance changes after that point, and it's wonderful. He's doing a dual role this season, right? I mean, he is a completely different character after Godolkin leaves his body, and it's wonderful. He created like two different characters basically for this role, and I think he does a wonderful job. You know, I do think that Gen V and the boys take a certain, in my opinion, infantile glee at torturing and killing humans a lot. Like there's a lot of human death and suffering in these shows, and most of it feels to me pretty frivolous, pretty gratuitous. I mean, I understand it reinforces some of the broader themes of the show of like, we are nothing to these people, and I get that. But then a lot of it just feels cruel and wanton, to be honest with you. But the way they handle Hamish Linklater's character, where he actually it gets to explain, like, here's what happened to me. He took over my body. He made me kill this guy, like, and all this stuff. And you get a sense of like, oh, they actually treated that idea of sock puppeting someone physically with the gravity that it deserves through Hamish Linklater's character, I think. And that was very powerful to me. And then, of course, shortly after, they kill him immediately. Like, so limited number of amount of compassion they have for him. Jesse, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I didn't want to interrupt your flow. I actually see, that was my problem with it too, because I did feel like it was ultimately a little bit cruel. Like, we do get a moment like with Hamish like getting to just play like a normal guy, but then he gets killed kind of offhandedly as they're going to like take him to the hospital. And that whole setup kind of felt a little bit like just set up so they could get the characters away from the action. Like, I think she
Marie ran out of powers.
Yeah,
so
she can't like heal him, so they had to take him. It's a bit yada yada yada, and then it's ultimately kind of just done so that we can like just like get rid of Hamish and he's done with the show. And that felt a little bit cruel. Like, it is slightly better handled, but to make a comparison to the boys has handled not only like the killing of like average people, but like assault in a little bit infantile ways. I think of like, especially in, I think last season or maybe the season before, where we had Jack Quaid's character get like sexually assaulted, and then it's just like played as a ha 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 male assault is a joke sort of thing. This isn't that bad, but there is something that is frustrating to me to watch a character that we literally like have his like we watch him like have sex with Sister Sage in front of his own like body, Godolkin's body. So we realize like how violating that actually has been repeatedly over and over and over again for this guy. And he doesn't even seem that haunted by it. Like, he does talk about it, but and I don't want necessarily to be like him to be like this closed off trauma victim who never talks. And I was like, oh God, I haven't had a personality in years. You got to have something there, but it just feels like there was more here. And I get that we are in the service of the season finale. We got to have the big bombastic fight, but it just feels like there's a certain level of cruelty in just dismissing this character so quickly, especially when it is an actor who is so good that I feel like, I don't necessarily know what you could have done with him after this point, and maybe it is just like, let's get rid of him and be done with it. But it is just, it does feel like both an unsatisfying conclusion for an actor who I really liked, and in just a kind of a slightly callous way to treat a character who you've like had all these implications of how badly he was treated the entire season. So
yeah, I don't really dispute that. I mean, I actually really enjoyed the conversation they had in the car, where he talks about Polarity's son and Andre and how Andre was, and that was like a nice connect. It was I was thinking to myself, oh, like the whole plot line. I just want to be clear. I'm talking about the show alone. I'm not talking about real life events, right? The whole plot line of Andre passing away between seasons. It's been kind of like awkward to kind of see them try to get the plot pieces together to tell the story they want to tell this season. But then at the very end, it feels like, oh, like this is like a beautiful moment where this character has access to this information, not through preferable ways, but just they have access to this information that's like really powerful and helpful for this other character to heal. And I thought that was a very nice like conclusion for their plotline together. I don't think he needed to die horribly, like that. Cypher
like want him to suffer.
Why not? Like
that's like the boys bleeding into Gen V,
right.
and like the worst impulses of the boys. Like, wouldn't it be funny if that happened? It's like, yeah, keep that in the writer's room.
Yeah, it would have been nice if Hamish Linklater like kind of like went off and lived his own life and everything was okay. But you didn't need to kill him. But whatever, it's the way they want to do the show. But I will also say the whole Hamish Linklater stuff reminds me a lot about Being John Malkovich. Spoilers for Being John Malkovich if you haven't seen the movie, but it's about Being John Malkovich is about these people that can like go inside John Malkovich's head and puppet his body. And there's a moment at the very end of Being John Malkovich where what's his name? John Cusack has been controlling John Malkovich's body the whole movie. And then at the very end, these people convince John Cusack to leave, right? And John Cusack leaves John Malkovich's body, and then John Malkovich like looks in the mirror and he's like, "I'm free at last. I'm free." And then literally like a second after that, all these other people pile into the being John Malkovich tube, and then they take over his mind again. And that always struck me as like really upsetting as an idea of like to finally achieve freedom after many years, and then it's gone again. And so I maybe that's what they're going for, and that was not a bad that wasn't a bad thing. But but it's in the context of The Boys, it feels a little more cruel than I think than poetic, if that makes sense. Let's talk about the other big plotline reveal, right? So the whole season, I mean, I'll just say my overall thoughts on the season are that it probably could have been 5 to 6 episodes instead of 8. It really felt like it was spinning its wheels in the middle with Kate going to Elmira and then them going to save Kate. And then people in the show are literally saying, why are we doing this? Why are we saving Kate? And then like no one seems to be able to answer that question. And then there's a moment when I think Jordan is the name of the character, right? Says, hey, Cypher, can you just please tell Marie what Odessa is? Like, stop keeping us all in suspense. And like I, as the viewer, am feeling that way too. Like, why are you dragging this out? Like, just tell us what the answer is. But the answer is that Odessa is a project to create super soups, like soups that are super beings, uber soups. And that so far the program has only successfully created 2 of them. One of them is Homelander, and the other one is Marie Moreau, who we learned during the course of the season has the ability to raise people from the dead and heal them, which I would agree is like a really powerful power. So Patrick, any thoughts, reaction to kind of that being the new state of play for the Boys universe?
Well, I mean, one of my key problems with the season in general is something you touched on the beginning, which is the treatment of Kate as a character, who is one of my favorite characters in the show, wonderful actor. And where they leave her at the end of season 1, which is a participatory fascist, it's like a really fucked up but interesting place to leave that character. And this season just doesn't know what to do with that. I think because where the character is left at the first season is incompatible with the storytelling of season 2. They need to get Kate back to being part of the family, part of the group. And the show struggles deeply with how to get her there in a way that makes sense, which is basically at a certain point, the show just sort of gives up. And it's like, let's all hug it out. If we say sorry enough times, maybe it'll all work out. Ends up being a disservice to Kate. I think ends up being a disservice to like a lot of the characters, like not being able to have a proper arc to deal with the resolution of season 1. I think that's because I'm sure that is interwoven with the real life events that like interceded right before they went into production on season 2. I get it. I can again grant the season a lot of grace on that, but I found Kate really underserved, and am fine with where she ended up. It makes sense with where the season was ultimately going, but I think her character and the lack of organic journey that she sort of goes on throughout is, I think, indicative of the complicated and like messy nature of the season as a whole. I mean, she has one of the more interesting wrinkles, which is like, what if your power just stopped kind of working? Kind of fucked up power. Like, I have it, but I don't. Right. Like, we've seen power stripped away from superhero beings, but we've never seen it sort of broke. Like, it just doesn't work in the way that you're intending. And at least as some of the funnier, interesting, like darker moments of the season, like the gnome moment when they're trying to break in and figure out what's going on in Cypher's house. So her character, who still is one of my favorites, I think largely driven by the performance, less than the arc that character got to go on. And that's, I don't know, I found that to be very indicative of many of the frustrations I had throughout this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's totally fair. There's this big moment when Marie decides to heal Kate at the end of the season and give her powers back. And I felt it was a powerful moment, but I felt like it could have been more powerful if Kate's arc had been more cohesive this season. There's also some interesting stuff going on where Kate is a beautiful character, but essentially through the events of seasons 1 and 2 becomes disfigured. And you sense that, there's a scene where she kind of is looking in the mirror and like her arm is missing and her head's all messed up. And you sense her kind of like contemplating kind of her disfigurement. And then the show never does anything with that. Like I was kind of curious, like, oh, like this is interesting that you have somebody who is beautiful, who's like now like deal. And then the show's just like, no, we're not even going to, that's too sad. Let's not deal with that at the end of the show. Which I thought was a little disappointing. Some kind of introducing some interesting plot threads that could have been expanded upon a little bit later. But yeah, Marie is now an Uber soup that is apparently really hard. You can't hack her brain very easily. And she theoretically, as we learn at the end of season 2, is going to be an important part of the resistance. Jessie Earl, any reaction to? I mean, you were talking about at the opening segment about how you were disappointed in how this ties into the events of The Boys. Let's talk about it. How does it tie into the events of The Boys, and like why do you feel it hurts the show a little bit?
I mean, because I think it is ultimately in service of like doing stuff with the boys, because a lot of this season's plot, like this reveal, feels like it is here more to service what's going to happen in the final season of The Boys. Like I feel like they're setting up some level of confrontation between Homelander and Marie, as like, okay, they're now equivalent soups, so we can sort of have them face off in some way, or she'll be some mechanism. Like I guess I'm just wondering where it's ultimately going to go, because either A, we have this situation where she's going to be a very important plot point for the boys. And that feels like a disservice to this show in the sense that like you're leaving such a big plot element for another show to deal with this character that's going to be kind of like an interesting arc for her. Or she's going to be like a side thing next season where they're like, oh, we need to have like a plot to capture Homelander, so she's going to show up for an episode and a little cameo to like help defeat him, and you know, whatever happens from there. And that also will feel like kind of a disservice to like this character in this show, because it's going to be like, oh, she'll just be used as like a plot beat in another show. So it ultimately feels like this weird in service of a like a larger narrative that kind of disappoints me. Like it would be another thing if there was like an Avengers level movie or Avengers level thing where it's like, okay, there's going to be equal time, and maybe that'll happen, but it just feels like a weird place to leave this show in terms of where it's going to try and take her character, what it means for like the larger narrative of both shows. So I think that's kind of my frustration with it there.
Yeah, like assuming there is a season 3, it's a weird place for that character to be.
Yeah, because like, what is it going to mean? Because obviously, I feel, and it does have me curious to see where this. I mean, what does have me curious is going to be where this franchise goes, because we know next season of The Boys is the final season, right? I believe, right? I'm not.
That is correct. That is correct.
And so presumably, there's going to be some resolution on like the Homelander of it all, and this sort of like right wing like takeover. Like we literally have like Hamish Linklater being like anti-woke stuff throughout the season. So like there's clearly like a commentary they're making on our current modern day setup going on here. And so like there feels like there's going to be a resolution of that. And I'm curious to see what that's going to mean for all these boys spinoffs that we're supposedly getting, of like where they're going to be taking this, because it feels like that is kind of like a big finale. So what do we deal with after that point? Which I think is actually can be very fascinating, of like how do you build something after like such a fascist regime. But it is just this kind of frustrating thing where we have this show that in many ways is kind of like meant to parody and comment and deconstruct that sort of MCU style of story. Like this is very much taking on that sort of Marvel machine and what the implications of a lot of it are in many ways, as well as addressing our culture. And then we get this sort of like, but now we're still doing the MCU-ification that must service the Amazon machine of here's the endless spin-offs, here's the endless setups, here's all it's how it's all connected, and we're going to drag out the plot of this thing for however long we need to milk it. So I guess it's just like there's always a part of me that's like they can still do something interesting here, and maybe whatever they do in The Boys and what comes after will like completely change my view on it. But I sit here kind of a little bit frustrated and unsure of what the direction is and what it's going to ultimately, if it's ultimately going to feel satisfying for the characters of this show, rather than them being their like just sort of side plot for The Boys. I will say, I mean, we didn't touch upon it, like sans The Boys of it all. I do like the reveal because it does sort of fit that very fascist ideology of like we're trying to create an Ubermensch, like perfect person. And like this sort of like might makes right mentality. So I think like as a metaphor, it works pretty well. But But yeah, and just in terms of like the storytelling of what we're setting up as part of this larger Amazon boys machine, I'm left sort of wondering if they'll be able to pull it off. I think is the best way to put it.
Yeah, that's interesting. It has essentially become the thing that it sought to satirize and lampoon, right?
Either
It
die
is
a
what the
hero or
boys-
live long enough to become a corporate.
They have lived
corporate
long
machine.
enough to become the villain.
Mhm.
Eric Kripke, in an interview with The Wrap, has said about what the plans are for the future, quote, "We have a plan for Gen V Season 3, and we're psyched about it, but we need enough viewers to watch Season 2 to justify Season 3. Now is the time that they're paying attention to the numbers. So don't watch even a year from now. Turn on Prime and watch it now. If enough people get watch, then we'll get a Season 3. Same applies to Vought Rising Season 1. We have plans for a Season 2 if we can. They've been nothing but supportive, and they're giving us our opportunities, but it's a business, and we also have to deliver. So hopefully the audience shows up," end quote. Apparently, the numbers in general for Gen V Season 2 have been very good. I think it's obviously consistently been on Amazon's number one on the TV charts. It's also the Gen V Season 2 premiere, I'm reading here from Forbes, was its biggest weekly streaming audience to date, more than any Season 1 episode, including the finale. So that does mean that the viewership has grown from Season 1 to Season 2, which is always a positive sign for shows. Not all shows get that. So anyway, worth noting, but no, of course, no plot details that would answer any of your questions, Jessie Earl, unfortunately.
I mean, again, they might pull it off, and my cat just keeps wanting to get in the way of this microphone. But yeah, I mean, they might pull it off. It might be like they might have some really cool connective tissue. So I'll eat my words on it. But I just am left sitting here at this point, being like, what's the direction, and is it going to feel satisfying not only for the boys' larger narrative, but for these characters?
I am wondering if there are any other highlights from the season that are worth discussing, or any other big moments from the season that you want to mention. I do just want to say I really appreciated the final episode, where the idea is that Thomas Godolkin is going around and he's saying, if you have useless powers, like, we're going to kill you, like, you're going to be filtered out. And then it's the people with all the weirdest random powers at the end that kind of get the jump on him. Now, they kind of undermine that when Polarity just comes in at the end and saves everyone. But still, it's cool that the woman with the pubic hair growing and the guy who can store people up his ass, and like all those people, like, they're the ones that end up kind of defeating Godolkin at the end. I really like that as a message of the show, which is that, like, all soups have value. You know, it's not just the ones that have the flashy powers. There can be equality even in the soup world that is worth considering. So I really appreciated that. But yeah, are there any other kind of highlights from the season, or any other big moments that you all want to discuss? Patrick Lepek, anything come to mind?
Well, it's funny. I remember when you and I discussed The Boys season 4, David, that we had a lot of frustration with the Sister Sage character, who's a really interesting, take on the quintessential smartest person in the world sort of figure, not new to superheroes, but she was like a really, like, the performance was really interesting in season 4. I wanted to like that character a lot, but more often than not, she was just a plot device to sort of have things conveniently work out. And I thought she was, like, expertly used in this season of The Boys. Did not it was actually a great use of Gen V. I thought it was a great use of being an extension of the universe, where kind of whatever happened here is inconsequential. Like, whatever happened to her is sort of inconsequential, but it's fun, and you don't need to know who she is if you got into the show or the universe through Gen V. But she's a fun wrinkle if you do know, like, what her role is in the broader universe. And I thought this idea that she helped Godolkin come up with this domino style plan to, like, get himself out of there and healed and, like, back in his body, and, like, let's go meet her with Homelander and take over the world. But, like, she let fucking get ahead of anything else. Like, she could do the perfect plan, except for the fact that, like, the sex distracted her, and, like, she can see everything except for, like, love or sex, or, like, the usual things that confuse people. And the fact that
it turns out the real superpower, Patrick Lepek, is love.
Yes.
I don't know.
And the way that I think she portrays the performance of being, like, the smartest person, and how, like, the arrogance that she carries with that is really, it's really well done. It's why I felt she was one of probably the biggest disappointments of the previous season. Like, this is a great character, great performance, and the writing completely failed her. And I thought here was like a much better use of like, how do you show the strength and weakness of being the smartest person of the world? And part of it is like, oftentimes the smartest person in the world is someone who has no empathy or does not experience emotions. Like they kind of sap that from the character. Sister Sage is not that. Like she deeply cares about Godolkin, and then it ends up being her blind spot. It's like, I guess the Nazi wanted to do Nazi things. I just wanted to like have sex with the Nazi and like take over the world, but like in a fun, sexy way, not in and it was just, it was great. It was one of my, the highlights of like, as the season was sort of barreling towards the end, her appearance and participation and how they better portray her strengths and like her power set. I thought was, I hope there are lessons learned from this for season 5, however she is deployed, because every time they would cut to her just going like, oh, God damn it. Oh, why are you doing this? Son of a bitch. Was really fun. As an aside from that, weird thing, not sure if it bothered anyone else, and it feels like something was cut from the end of Gen V season 2. When Godolkin is using his powers over and over and like he's getting the boils that like kind of come back. I don't know. I guess we're maybe a reference to the like being burned so badly and in the accident. Kind of figured like that was going to play some sort of role in like how he died or what happened. And instead it doesn't matter at all. But then why keep cutting to that and making like Sister Sage like, hey, you can't keep doing this. Like you're hurting yourself. And then it just doesn't matter. Like nothing. It doesn't do with anything at the end. It was a weird little aside.
First of all, it turns out when you revive a megalomaniacal narcissist with superpowers, it may have unforeseen consequences. I just not sure how she didn't see that one coming, but fair enough. My interpretation, I guess I echo maybe it was your or Jesse's, both of your comments that like it is a bit sad that Thomas Godolkin comes back and then literally within one episode he's disposed of. Like this is theoretically one of the most considerable, formidable villains ever to have ever graced the show. And then they're just gone within an episode, which is like a huge bummer. And it felt like there was probably some more tension, Patrick, to be mined out of the idea that, he's overusing his powers and like, because it's actually makes him a more compelling villain if he actually has some weaknesses. And so it's like, I could see, they're making it out so he can't control like 15 people or else he'll start to like boil away. You can
imagine a scenario like in the next season where it's like he tries to take over an arena of people and then it turns and like he ends up being disabled for a crucial part of their plans. Like they're clearly he's gonna survive and they're laying out a very interesting weakness for the next season. But no, they blow up. His head is just exploded. He's just gone.
Yeah, I mean, I like it as a metaphor too for like this whole thing of like he has this fascist like might makes right. Everyone's I'm the strongest person here, and I need to prove everyone else can, and survival of the fittest sort of thing. And he himself will end up making himself a disabled character again, like putting himself right back in the position he was. Like that's such a cool. It's a cool idea, and I wish we had gotten more. Like honestly, I feel we talked about already like how the middle of the season is dragged. Honestly, I feel like you could have pushed up this reveal sooner.
100%.
Yeah.
And
100%.
just really played it out. If you wanted to have this, like, have a finale of, like, he's dealt with by the end and have, like, 3 episodes instead of, like, one of, like, and now my fascist dreams will be completed in the course of 1 episode. Yeah. I'll make my weird, fascist machine university in a single 60 minutes.
He really didn't have much time to implement his plan, unfortunately. So huge bummer there. Okay, Jessie Earl, any other moments or thoughts you want to share about this season of Gen V?
One thing I did like, it wasn't my favorite story in the world in terms of how it was done, but I did like the narrative of Marie dealing with her sister and being like, it was not my fault. I was just a kid who and it's not my fault I killed our parents. Like they're the ones that kind of put me in that situation. I did really like that sort of narrative and like the two of them sort of reconciling. I thought that was like a nice sort of like arc for her and having to wrestle with that. I don't have a ton to say about it. It is kind of like very simple story in terms that we've seen before, but I thought it was really well handled and I liked her sort of like coming out and just really stating like, it's not my fault. I like that.
Yeah, I liked the wrinkle there in which, and this is something where I wish the show had spent more time on this as well, because it was one of the more emotionally Like the reveal in Gen V season 1 of how Marie kills her parents is like one of those. It's the boys at its best, which is using over the top violence to make an emotional point. Like, and when that happens, like my heart broke, and also you're like, you know, I mean, it's just really like a top 5 moment of like what the show does when it's like hitting on everything. And like the arc that like Marie's sister goes on of like, I know it's not your fault and I fucking hate you anyway, is like a very relatable feeling to have, like as a human. Like my brain and heart are telling me different things and I'm not going to rationalize them. Like I'm going to live with both of them. And yes, this is a world of superheroes and magical powers, but that idea that you should feel a certain way, but you just can't let yourself do it. I thought, oh, there was more to get from this across this season, and it feels like it speed runs it because, but we need them to sort of make up and be ready to be part of like a resistance faction team by the end. And so it still works for me, but it's one of those like, oh, I would have loved more time. She's introduced as a character too late into the season for them to spend enough time to, I think, really pull that out.
Yeah, totally fair. Also, is precog like a generally understood term? You know, that was like that is a term from Minority Report, as far as I understand. But I don't know if is that like a general term for people who can see things in the future. You know what I mean? Let me ask you this: have you heard the term precog outside of the context of Minority Report?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah,
it's a cool term though.
Yeah, it's a cool term. It's a cool term. But I was like, oh, that's a minor. It's like how. Well, anyway. And I also like that Marie makes fun of her predictions for being really shitty. Like at the end, at the end, she's like, your predictions are like completely useless. It's. It is funny that it is kind of like one of the more useless skills because she doesn't have like a clear sense of what's actually going on. So she'd be like, they're almost here. And it's like, and then the people arrive and it's like, okay, I don't know how that really adds value to what I was doing before. But anyway, yeah. So overall, I'm glad that there were some aspects of the season you both enjoyed. And, you know, like I said earlier, I think if the season had been like 6 episodes, I would have been like, that is the perfect length. It is just a little bit of like an amuse-bouche, an aperitif, like getting ready for the next boys season. But at this point, I do agree with you, Jesse, that like this show, Gen V, as a standalone show, its status as a standalone show is very in question. And what is going to happen after the boys? Like, what happens when there's no broader world-ending stakes to tie their activities to? Are they going to be able to find their own voice? These are open questions that we don't know, like how the show is going to answer. So I guess we're going to have to come back when The Boys Season 5 airs and talk about it. Hey everyone, David Chen here. Thank you so much for watching that video from Decoding TV. If you want to get an audio version of the show, all you got to do is go to podcast.decodingtv.com. And if you want to support what we do, get ad-free episodes of the podcast and also bonus episodes of the podcast, go to decodingtv.com and become a paid member. Of course, you can also like and subscribe for more. We appreciate it. Thanks. See you later.